Well, this should be an interesting video for you to watch because it is going to point out some of the ups and downs I've encountered in all my international travels, which have been nearly 4 million miles in the air so far and more than 50 countries visited. But this first picture represents one of absolutely the most terrifying experiences I've ever had on a plane. Our plane took off from Roanoke, Virginia, and it was late. It was already dark outside when we climbed up towards the sky. And it wasn't long before this phenomenon known as St. Elmo's fire began. It looked like the outside of the plane was the middle of the day. The lightning just lit up the whole plane. I've never been so scared on a flight in my life. And of course the plane, because we were in the middle of this storm, was going up and down and side to side and being tossed all over like a rag doll. And I was like, ah! And there I was sitting quietly by myself coming home from a business trip, wondering whether this would be the last few minutes of my life. I was scared to death, and that is no understatement. But it finally ended after 20 minutes or half an hour, and we did land safely in LaGuardia, and I have never been so happy to put these 2 feet on terra firma in my entire life. Next, this was an amusing glitch. My husband and I were enjoying a wonderful safari in Chief's Camp in the Okavango Delta of Botswana, not South Africa. Botswana is its own country. We chartered a flight to take us from there to the Madikwe Reserve, where I was going to meet my roommate from college. So the charter plane landed at near Chief's Camp, and we boarded and we headed for South Africa. When we got there to the quote-unquote airport, which is just a dirt strip in the middle of nowhere, we had to buzz the airport to get the giraffes off the runway. That was so much fun. I loved every minute of that. But then we landed, and there was nobody there to meet us. So I turned to my husband, because I had been there before, and I said, something's wrong. We must be in the wrong airport, but how could there be 2 airports at the Madikwe Reserve out in the middle of nowhere in northern South Africa? So our very nice, very attractive pilot got out his map, which is you're looking at in the picture here, and noticed that there was another airport. So we took off again. It was 11 miles away, and we landed at the second airport in the Madikwe Reserve. And there we were greeted with open arms by the safari camp where we were staying, which is the gorgeous Matea Safari Lodge. The first question was, how come you're so late? And I looked at my friend from the lodge and I said, it's a long story. But that was the first time I've ever experienced landing at the wrong airport. Next up, my husband and I are avid golfers, and one year we decided to go to the Masters Golf Tournament in Augusta, Georgia. Unfortunately for us, our flight was like 4 hours delayed into Atlanta, so it was dark outside when we arrived. We went to the trusty National Car Rental to pick up our car, and they bluntly told us they had no more cars to rent. Well, my husband said, well, here's our reservation. Where's our car? He said, well, I guess we were just overbooked. So Richard got on the phone and called some nearby other rental car agents, and we were able to find one with a car. We got there, and it was a stick shift. Well, that didn't matter because both of us know how to drive a stick shift. But by the time we got to Augusta, it was very, very late, but well worth it because the Masters Tournament is just such an incredibly special event. We loved Amen Corner, seeing it not on a television screen, but in real life. We watched on a practice round as the golfers skipped their balls across the lake onto the 16th green. It was just so magical from beginning to end. And our trusty rental car was fine the entire time. And we had absolutely the most special trip. Now, this was an interesting situation. A friend of mine and I decided to go on a trip way far away to a little country in the Himalayas called Bhutan. And in order to get there, we needed a visa. So my husband leaves us off at the airport, and off he goes, and we go and check in at the counter. And the lady says, "Can I see your visa for India?" I said, "Well, I don't have a visa." What happened was that our trusty tour guide forgot to tell us that we needed a visa. Oh, I was panicked. I thought, oh my God, am I going to be able to take this trip or not? But anyway, I called him and he said, just go ahead. And by the time you get to New Delhi, India, I'll have plans for you. So don't worry. Just have a good flight and I'll talk to you soon. So we got on the plane and we went to Heathrow on time, changed planes for New Delhi, arrived there, and sure enough, there were 2 plane tickets for us to go to Kathmandu, Nepal. Well, I can tell you, I was excited, as excited as could be. It was one of the places I've always wanted to visit. Of course, my friend and I were very disappointed that we were not going to get to see the Taj Mahal, because, of course, that is one of the most incredibly beautiful buildings anywhere in the world, and it would have been a magical experience to see it with our own 2 eyes. But yet I was still excited about going to Kathmandu. So that's what we did. And there was also another bonus about going to Kathmandu. We stayed at the most gorgeous hotel, one of the most gorgeous in the world. And I was just so thrilled to have a chance to experience the Dwarika. So if you're ever in Kathmandu, make sure to stay there. Another bonus was when we flew from Kathmandu to Paro, Bhutan. It was an absolutely perfect day weather-wise. And we had the great pleasure of flying by and seeing Mount Everest from 36,000 feet. We were almost eye to eye with that gorgeous mountain. Oh, what a thrill that was. So, on this trip, even though our plans changed, it was absolutely a fabulous detour, and a silver lining it was for sure. Next up, years ago, during my world travels, I should have started off by saying, in my world travels, I have never had my wallet stolen, or my passport, or lost my passport, or really lost anything that was valuable. Thank goodness for that. But on a business trip to Germany, I did do something that caused a very important item to be taken, an irreplaceable item. So I was staying at this gorgeous luxury hotel in Munich. Oh, it was just a slice of heaven. I felt like a princess staying there. And then it came time to check out. So there I went to the front desk, and I had my luggage right next to me, and on top of it I laid down my Canon camera. Went and paid my bill, turned around, and my camera was gone. Now that was in the days when you had regular film, not digital. You didn't have digital cameras back then. So all my pictures in that camera were gone with the wind. Fortunately, I had 2 or 3 other rolls of pictures that had already been taken that were in my suitcase. So at least I was able to retrieve a few photographs to let me look back on the memories of that wonderful trip to Germany. So I guess the moral to this story is, don't ever lay your camera down or anything valuable where you can't see it. That was a really huge mistake, and I've never done it again. And luckily, I haven't lost anything important. So moving on to another. Well, before I do that one, I want to go to this one, because this was hysterical. My friends and I We named our group, the four of us, the Traveling Petticoats. 4 girls were headed to England and to France. But this portion is about Provence. We landed in Provence and we headed for the rental car place. And the only car they had was a stick shift. None of my lady friends knew how to drive a stick shift. I did. So I became the designated driver for that whole trip. But the first stop after getting the rental car was to go and have lunch, which we did, and we parked. But when we came out from lunch, the car was like both ends of it had a car in front of it, which it didn't have when we arrived there. And for the life of me, I could not figure out how to put that car in reverse. So my 3 friends jumped out of the car and pushed me back far enough so that I could turn the wheel and get out of that parking space in first gear. Luckily for all of us, it was very soon thereafter that I figured out how to put that old car into reverse and never had another problem driving it on our whole trip, which was fabulous amount of fun. I love Provence. So, last but not least, was a trip to Las Vegas, a business trip. I was there on a convention. I checked into the hotel, went to my room, unpacked, and decided, oh my God, here I am in Las Vegas. Let me open the curtains and see all the bright lights in the city. So that's exactly what I did. So I opened the curtains, and I am not exaggerating. Out flew, I swear it was 1,000 moths, right at me. I felt like I was Tippi Hedren in Alfred Hitchcock's movie, The Birds. They were swarming all over me in the room. I fled out the door, back down to the front desk. Whew. Luckily, the bellman went and retrieved my suitcase and the rest of my belongings from my room, so I didn't have to go back in there, and brought them to what they generously gave me was a suite because of this moth encounter. Well, that was a very nice gesture, and I appreciated it. But oh, that was really wild. So anyway, all of you, that in a nutshell has been some of my ups and downs and quirky experiences traveling the world. And I wouldn't give up any of these experiences for anything. Each one of them I look back and smile. None of them ended up really spoiling any of my trips. I'm telling you, the only one that really terrified me was the St. Elmo's Fire plane ride. But other than that, this is a magical world we live in. And having traveled so many miles and been to so many different countries, 50 in all, I simply can't wait to go step on a plane and go somewhere where I've never been and feel the total magic that there is in experiencing a brand new destination.